Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. In this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the college football games that had just occurred. Sad days for the Georgia Bulldogs. And then we're going to talk about some NFL. And you can't teach that. Bada boom. Man of the people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I had an upset girlfriend, Georgia alumni last night. That didn't go the way that I think a lot of Georgia fans were expecting. This team had won 52 straight games against teams not named Alabama. So I would say maybe not sore losers out there, but just some things they probably aren't used to and probably weren't expecting.
Gunnar Stockton, dog. Kid's a dog. He can be just fine.
You feel good about the future of the program with him as your quarterback?
Yeah. What he showed last night, so impressed. I mean, some of the throws he made down the field, again, I think if you had a Carson Beck in the game, it's going to help in those decision-making points. Like, he might feel the pressure a little bit more from the left tackle. Like, he might feel the blitz. He might get rid of it quicker here or there. But as far as just making throws down the field and putting his team in a position to win the game, the defense played great. The offense didn't do enough, but they were okay. It was the special teams. It was the strip sack. You take away those points, Georgia's right there in the football game and probably wins the game. So we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I'm sick of reading online how people are saying this Notre Dame team is the best since Jesus Christ. Like, Georgia played themselves out of the game. Like, that should be the narrative last night.
I will say I am excited to see either Notre Dame or Penn State in the national championship game. Both of those programs, kind of been on the, I don't want to say the down and out because they've still been relevant, but they haven't been with the Bamas, they haven't been with the Clemsons, with the Georgias, with Oregon, whoever you want to put out there. So it's going to be cool to see one of those two teams kind of get a chance to put themselves back on top by winning the national championship.
Yes, it will. And we're going to talk about all that on the show today. But before we do that, Grant, tell them why they need to check out WSN.com.
Absolutely. I mean, we are going into the new year, but all that means is we're moving towards even more exciting times in the world of sports. To a lower level, you've got the NBA All-Star game coming up, but then you've got the Super Bowl and you've got the college football playoff and the national championship. So Tanner, myself, a team of experts, we are breaking down everything that's going on in sports. We're talking about betting trends. We're giving picks and previews. We got sportsbook promo codes to allow you to earn some more opportunities while you're sports betting. So if you're into any of that type of stuff, WSN.com, that's the place to be.
Yes, it is. So make sure you guys check out WSN.com. Grant, what game should we start with? Should we start with the Fiesta Bowl? I mean, let's
go time order. Let's go chronologically.
Okay, so that means we're starting with the Fiesta Bowl. Penn State versus Boise State. Bottom line from this game, and even the Arizona State-Texas game, the teams that receive buys should not have received buys. We need to figure this out. Boise State was not worthy of a buy, and honestly, buys did not help any of the teams because they're all eliminated. But seeding-wise, Boise State could not play with Penn State. Ashton Ginty, dog. I mean, he ran very hard throughout the entire game, but Penn State was just bigger, faster, stronger. We both expected that coming into the game.
Yeah, I don't understand why people are going online. If you're trying to pin that loss on Ashton Ginty, either you didn't watch or you simply don't know football. He, like you said, he was running hard. He was forcing missed tackles. Think of Ashton Ginty as Saquon Barkley on the New York Giants. It's when you have to make guys miss in the backfield, when you have to break tackles just to get to the line of scrimmage, is going to be difficult. So Ginty ran well, even though the numbers don't reflect that. I was honestly just confused by Penn State's offensive game plan. They were so clearly the better team that the Boise State could not tackle Katron Allen early in the game, and then later on it became Nicholas Singleton. They couldn't tackle him, yet Penn State insisted on throwing all of these deep passes, and it slowed the offensive down. Penn State could have scored 40 or 50 points in this game. They just chose not to for whatever reason.
That's the problem with Penn State, though. And I think, looking ahead to the next round, and we're going to break this down on future shows, but when you look at Notre Dame, Penn State, I think Penn State's going to be a more talented team coming into that football game from an offensive and defensive perspective. I think they can match them on defense. I think offensively they can throw the ball a lot better. They have just as good of a run game, but they're going to outcoach themselves. They get away from what they do best, and that's Penn State's biggest issue, and that's why it's hard to trust them moving forward. But this team's got a lot of talent, and I think they showed that against Boise State, physically dominated the trenches. They held Ashton Jeanty to 30 for 104. We kind of said that, it's more likely Jeanty has 75 yards than 200 or 150 or whatever the number was going up there. So Penn State did exactly what they needed to do. They looked motivated for this game. And I think they're a live dog going into that Notre Dame game as long as they don't coach themselves out of football games, which is what James Franklin tends to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I got nothing much to add there. They were the more physical team. They were clearly better. Good to them for going in and proving it. It didn't. I don't think it taught us anything, but it's another good sign. Penn State's been pretty consistent. They lost to Oregon, but they scored 37 points and they lost to Ohio State. So I guess the question is, really, we know they can beat everybody else. Just when they get to that big game, are they actually going to be able to win it?
Mid-major teams should never be higher than a 12 seed moving forward.
I don't want to limit them to the 12, but they should not have a bye.
12,
unless they're doing the most outrageous stuff possible.
Yeah, like they play a major conference schedule and they go undefeated. But like when you look at, people are saying the SEC is having a downfall this season because there's no SEC teams left besides the Texas program that was in the Big 12 last year. But as every team begins to pay players legally now, these mid-major teams are going to start falling apart and moving to the wayside. Like Boise State is never going to pay $20 million for a roster. They should be seeded off that. And giving them a bye was just ridiculous.
I do think it is worth having a discussion about the SEC, whether we want to do that now or later on, though.
We can do it later on. It's a whole discussion for itself, I think. I mean, what's your thoughts? Overview.
I think everybody knows the SEC is the best conference. I'm honestly a little glad that the SEC is losing all of these games because I think it's important for the SEC coaches and the SEC fans to realize you can be in the best conference. That doesn't make you deserving of all these opportunities. At the end of the day, sports are about competition, and you have to go earn whatever it is you're competing for. Because you're 9-3, because you're 8-4 in the best conference, doesn't mean that you are inevitable. And we're seeing that play out. We're seeing Oklahoma lose to Navy. Texas should have lost to Arizona State. Georgia did lose to Notre Dame. We're seeing it happen all over the place.
And yes, the SEC is still probably the best overall conference. Big Ten, I mean, is loaded too, and you can put them on the same playing field. But when I look at the SEC this year, Jalen Milroe, terrible. I mean, he was tipping every play. Did you see that video? Someone revealed it.
Split stance was run, together was pass.
And you don't think Michigan knew that? Like, yeah, they knew exactly what he was doing every play. Okay, so they can't win that game. The Oklahoma-Navy game, Oklahoma had a freshman quarterback who just fell apart after the first two drives of the game. Navy brought their whole team. Again, bad loss. And you can't, if you're going to say Texas isn't an SEC team, you can't say Oklahoma's an SEC team. Like that's kind of that toss up there. Oklahoma's in the Big 12. If you're saying there's no SEC teams left, the internet. What was the other? Tennessee was not as good as Ohio State. Not even close. We know that. Georgia had a backup quarterback and played themselves out of the game. Who else am I missing?
I'm trying to remember. So A&M lost to who did A&M lose to?
A&M was never good. I'm not going to sit here and say A&M was a top 25 SEC team.
The other teams out there are Ole Miss. Ole Miss stomped Duke last night.
Smoked Duke. Like that wasn't.
They needed to. If Ole Miss lost, Lane Kiffin would have gotten it from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss was one of the best 12 teams in the country. I think Ole Miss should have been in the playoffs.
I think they're in that 12 to 14 area. It's just like, where do you put them?
It depends how you structure it. Like, are they better than Boise State? Yeah, I will say that. Like, there's teams here that we could have bumped pretty easily. Like, are they better than Indiana? Yeah.
I don't know about that. I will be honest. I don't know that.
I don't think Indiana was that good.
I don't think Ole Miss is that good. And it goes back to what I was saying. Like, you have to earn. We can't just make this level. We can't make it the Vegas odds makers playoff. Like, we're still competing for spots in the playoff.
But you look at like last night, people saying that, Notre Dame beat Georgia worse than Notre Dame beat Indiana. Well, Indiana had the touchdown late. Notre Dame physically assaulted Indiana in the trenches. It was clear. You never got that vibe last night from the Georgia Notre Dame game.
I don't know. Notre Dame was dominated. The Notre Dame defensive line dominated. Yeah.
Dominated. But also, too, you didn't have the threat of the pass as much. Like, I think from defensively, Notre Dame looked really good. Georgia's defense handled their offense no problem, though. That wasn't it. So it's the physicality too. Like, and it's the hypotheticals, but when you don't play the same schedules, you're going to have these issues.
Yeah, there's always going to be something. We're still going to be making improvements. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a new format as far as, if you win your conference, you're guaranteed a spot, but maybe not a bye. Maybe we talk about reseeding. I think there's going to be some changes next year compared to where we're at right now.
Yeah, definitely. Are we ready to move on to what, Arizona State and Texas?
Yeah, and this might be the most interesting game.
Game should have never been close. Like, Texas, I don't know what possessed them to stop playing football. They, were up 17-3 at the half. They barely scored in the second half. And I want to give praise to Quinn Ewers here. As much as he shut down in this game late, the throw he makes on fourth down in overtime, there's very few quarterbacks in the country that can make that throw. His composure is elite. Like, he is never phased. He's never too high, never too low. He just flatlines kind of, and that's the only way you can make that throw in overtime.
No, I'm glad you started with that because I've been harsh on Quinn Ewers all year, and I felt the exact same way. The offense did not play well. I put a lot of that on Sark. I thought Sark's play calling in this game was horrific. You go up 14-0 in 2 offensive plays. All you got to do, get that game to 21-24 points. It is completely over. Arizona State's got nothing for you. But Arizona State's defense, they deserve credit too. They woke up. They started playing well. I thought the play calling was very bad. Texas could not establish the run. And all of a sudden, it's 4th and 13. Arizona State's up a touchdown in overtime, and Quinn Ewers makes the throw of his life. He had to make that throw. That's something, like, if that's an overthrow, that can define a career. That can shift who gives you offers in the transfer portal. That can shift our NFL scouts looking at you, or is the moment too big for you? He put it right on the money, and then obviously Texas goes out and wins that game. So credit to them. I'm with you. This game should not have been close, but Cam Scadaboo, we got to talk about him. He put the team on his back, Greg Jennings and Madden style, and he is the reason that thing even got to overtime. And I don't know if he was sick or if he was out of shape, whatever it was, because he was throwing up on the sideline. You could see the play would end, and he would lay down on the ground, wait for a teammate to come pick him up, and then they would snap the ball, and he would have a big play. And then a teammate would come pick him up. He deserves credit for his toughness.
I don't think he was sick. I think he was just getting the shit kicked out of him, and it didn't start to click till the second half. Like you saw in the first half, he had a bad attitude on the sideline, and then the second half he just started taking the game over. But I think he was just physically drained, and they hadn't played a game in a few weeks, and you're not going to replicate going against a Texas front seven. You haven't faced a Texas front seven this year, so I mean Texas was trying to shut him down early. I think it took a toll on him, and then he was able to take the game over late, obviously, catching the ball, throwing the ball, and running the ball. So he was fantastic. And this is a game, though, I think this is the best possible thing that could have happened to Texas. Winning how they won is better than winning a blowout. Like they finally woke up. They figured it out late. And I think that's going to define you moving forward more than winning a game you're supposed to by a lot of points. I think it's better they had the wake-up call here.
I still don't think there was a question that Texas was better, right? I think we feel worse about Texas going into the next round than we would have if they had blown them out. But I still don't think it was a question if Texas was better, right? Like when Arizona State was coming back, it was very, oh my gosh, can they actually do this? And then in overtime, oh my gosh, they actually scored a touchdown. When Quinn Ewers hit that huge play to Bolden, it was like, they did it. They found a way. And then they get the ball back for the next overtime, and the play's already happening before the TV even cuts back to the right camera, and then they score a touchdown off that. It's like, oh, well, they did it again. There weren't the same feelings of Texas needs this. Are they going to do it? It was just kind of assumed they're going to find a way.
Yeah, and then fourth down, I don't know how they let up that play. I don't know if I blitz on 4th down there. I think I just guard the sticks.
Yeah, I don't either. I understand blitzing on 4th down as a general principle, but not in that situation where the game is literally on the line. You know, one of Texas's strength is its offensive line. So, like, I would drop 7, 8 guys.
4th and 5, yeah, blitz. Try to get home, disrupt the pass. But if you don't get home and it's 4th and 13, and again, the safety had his eyes in the backfield, like he never saw the receiver. But it was just, I don't think I'd blitz there. I think I just guard the sticks and hopefully they don't get anything over the top there. But yeah, I actually, personally, I feel better about Texas coming to the next game. I think the way we've seen the story of the team that almost loses and then wakes up a few times, in sports in general. I think that helps them. I think playing in Dallas helps them a little bit.
Good point.
You can't argue with that. I think Quinn Ewers, and like everyone, not everyone, but ESPN is pumping the narrative. Well, Quinn played at Ohio State. I mean, Quinn barely touched field at Ohio State. So like, I can't get behind that one as much, but the recency bias, and it's real with Ohio State. I mean, they're playing excellent football right now, but Texas is still a very good football team. And when you look at a roster that can match up with Ohio State, if they play a good game, Texas is one of those rosters. So yes, Ohio State should win the game. I think 6 points could be a little more recency bias than it should be. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'm with you on that. I do think it's going to be vital for Texas to reestablish their running game in that Ohio State matchup. That was something that really helped them in the later in the year, and it's been very hit or miss. Sometimes they can't run the ball at all, and sometimes it's like, holy shit, does Texas have the best running game in the country? They've got to find some sort of consistency there. They haven't had it. One more thing I do want to say, because we haven't said his name yet, Sam Leavitt. For him, he said he wanted to go in there, prove he was the better quarterback. I don't know that he did that, but Quinn Ewers did not prove he was better than Sam Leavitt. Like, Sam Leavitt held his own. He held serve. And for a freshman to do that against that defense, I thought that was highly impressive.
Yeah, I don't think he proved he was the better quarterback. I think Quinn gets a lot of backlash because of just he's very flatline. Like, I think that's the Quinn Ewers narrative. Quinn did enough to win the game. The offense kind of shut down. Again, I blame Sark. They couldn't really get the run game going. They didn't commit to the run. Like, it was a game where Sam Leavitt played well, but Quinn outplayed him. In the end of the day, like, Quinn did outplay him down the stretch, because we forget too that Texas missed the 2 field goals to win the game. Mm-hmm. Or, one would have given Arizona State a chance to win, but you missed the field goals. Quinn drove them down the field both times to put them in a position to go kick those field goals too. So we're forgetting that as well.
This was a game of missed opportunities. Arizona State had the field goal blocked, and they turned it over on downs 3 times.
Yeah, no, Texas is very good. Like, I don't think we're giving Texas enough credit coming into the Ohio State game, in the sense of, these are big ifs. If they can run the ball, and if they can get a few stops on defense, they're going to be just fine. Like, Ohio State is not unbeatable. Yet they look unbeatable right now, but there is a formula for Texas to beat them, and Texas has the people to do it. I'm not saying they're going to execute, but at 6 points is just a lot of points here when you look at what Texas is actually capable of and playing in their home state.
Yeah, let's talk about Ohio State, since we're leaning into it right there. The thing that shocked me the most was, so we were on opposite sides. I had Ohio State, you had Oregon, but we both agreed the thing we trusted Oregon the most with in this game was their preparedness, and they looked totally unprepared. That was shocking to me.
Well, Dylan Gabriel was high at the friggin' press conference in the morning, so that didn't give me a lot of confidence. I think, okay, this is my take on this game. Ohio State's unbelievable. They're a great football team. We know that. This game came down more to Oregon was not prepared to play the game than Ohio State was that good. I mean, you had Jeremiah Smith just running wide open down the field. That should not be, like, he made some great contested catches. There were moments where he was running wide open down the field. The entire receiving core was running wide open down the field. That comes down to a defense not being prepared to play the game. Offensively, they couldn't get anything going. they never really had a chance. It's hard from an offensive perspective when your defense puts you in a 21-0 hole right away because you can't find a time to settle into the game. So I think from an offensive perspective, it was tough, but the defense just was not prepared to play the game. I think Ohio State's great. Tennessee played Ohio State tougher than Oregon did.
They really did. And I'm with you on what you said about Oregon's offense was never really given a chance because Ohio State touchdown, Oregon 3-and-out, whatever it was, Ohio State touchdown. If Oregon doesn't score on that drive, the game's kind of already over at that point, and they've barely even had a chance to play. And of course, that's what ended up happening. It was 34-0 before halftime. I mean, like you said, Ohio State's guys, this is the reason I picked them. I said they had so much talent on the outside that I trust the talent, but I didn't expect them to be running scot-free like that. Like you said, Emeka Ibuka, Jeremiah Smith, they were just running wild. Travion Henderson had the huge run. Oregon just never got stops. They never got chunk plays. They never created pressure. Ohio State was living in the Oregon backfield. Ohio State dominated every single aspect of that game, players and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, they were just Oregon was not the better football team. I don't think they're the better football team, but they can obviously beat Ohio State. We saw that. It just came down to one team was prepared to play, one team was motivated to play, the other team did not show up at all. I mean, Oregon's dudes were tapping out before the game even started. Like, it wasn't their night. That's just what it came down to. And when you have guys running wide open down the field, you're not prepared to play the game. It's not that the other team is just that much better than you. It's you're not prepared to play.
Credit to Dan Lanning after the game in his press conference. He could have easily said, if Ohio State's the best team, then we're the second best team. Or we beat them already, we're the best, and they're the second best. We're supposed to be playing for a national championship. There's a problem with the format. There's a problem with the bracket. He could have gone on about all that, and he would have been right. In no world should this have been Oregon's reward for an undefeated season. You get to play Ohio State right after Ohio State gets momentum with a massive blowout win. But Dan Lanning didn't do that. He went there. He said, Ohio State's an amazing team. I told them go win the championship. This is an incredible team. I love my guys. I'm still proud of the season we had, and we'll be ready next year. So I just want to say, tip of the hat to Dan Lanning.
I mean, they should have had Penn State's path. Like that should have been their schedule. I mean, honestly, any bracket is better than playing Ohio State in the first round. Or Tennessee for that matter. Like, I don't think Tennessee is great, but say Tennessee upset Ohio State. Like, starting with Tennessee is still not something the one seed should have to do. You should be starting with a mid-major team or a team that's like at SMU. Like, that's who you should start with.
Yeah, I agree. Oregon, I mean, it sucks for them. Like, that's their first loss of the season and they're done, but they just is what I said before the game. I didn't think they had the talent to compete with Ohio State, and that's what ended up showing up. The talent showed up.
I think, personally, I think Texas is better than Oregon.
You said that on the last show, I think. I think you said you would take Texas to beat Oregon.
If Texas plays a full game, like that's where I struggle with Texas. But Oregon, they did what they needed to do. But like defensively, when you're giving up 40 points to Penn State or whatever they gave up, like Ohio State's going to be running wide open down the field too. Like that was my concern for Oregon. It wasn't the offense as much. The offense just never had a chance to win. But this was a game they didn't show up in. It's sad they didn't show up, but it is what it is.
I mean, looking at the total yardage, you don't even have to look at the score. Total yardage, Oregon 276, Ohio State 500.
Yeah. Now, my question to you, Grant, does Ohio State keep the juice going through the remainder of the playoffs? Like, can they keep this pace up?
So this is the question. Ohio State at their best is better than everybody else. Yep. But it's not quite James Franklin level, but we're waiting for the drop-off. Is it going to happen? Is it going to hit at the wrong spot? I almost compare it to kind of what the Detroit Lions have done this season in the NFL. It's like they are running so hot, and they are dominating everybody. I've got no doubt what they look like at their best. But when you are pouring it onto teams, it's tough to do that week in, week out. Now, of course, the difference is the Lions have been doing it for a 4-month NFL season. Ohio State's only done it for the last 2 weeks because they lost to Michigan, and I think that gave them fuel. But the thing is, you dominate your first opponent of the playoff. You're like, okay, cool. That's a great start. But now we still got to go beat the number one team in the country. You do that, and it was even – I know the final score was closer. it was a more decisive victory against Oregon than it was against Tennessee. Can you keep that up against Texas, who looked like they should have lost to Arizona State? Looked like they were going to. 4th and 13, they're down a touchdown. This is where coaching needs to show up. If Kirby Smart was the coach of Texas, or Nick Saban, whoever, maybe I would really buy into that. But I haven't liked what I've seen from Sark, so I'm not willing to go that far. It's early. We're going to do our predictions next week, but I'm still liking where Ohio State's at right now.
I am too. I think from the perspective, though, of like, okay, Tennessee, you're coming fresh off the Michigan loss. You need to win that game. Like, you have to. They have to make a statement in that game. They do. Then you go into Oregon. You get your chance to play the team that beat you earlier in the year. And the way the game ended, like Will Howard, chip on his shoulder kind of game coming there. Now you're on top of the world. You're expected to win. And like, I don't know where you can find the motivation against Texas. Like Will Howard was saying after the game, you know, when I was at K-State, Texas is the only team I didn't win, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares about that. Like, this is, I don't know how you keep it up now that you're expected to be the top team. And I don't like what I've seen from Sark, but I still, Ryan Day, I don't think they're going to be running wide open down the field against Texas. If they are, great. But in the moments where they're going to, if you can find a defense that's not going to give up the big play to Ohio State, then we have football games. Like they're not blowouts. So that's where it enters full. I think personally, the team with the best chance of beating Ohio State, and this may sound absolutely crazy, it could be Penn State. Could be Penn State.
I had that in my head before you said it.
Yeah, it probably is Penn State. The conference opponent, you already played them once. Penn State played them tough at home. I have my fears of James Franklin, but talent and physicality wise and like conference wise, Penn State's probably the team that could upset them, and it would be a big upset. But nobody would be surprised to say, okay, Penn State beat a team that they lost to earlier in the year, and now they found their stride.
So it's still super early. We're not even 48 hours removed from that game, and these teams don't play for another week. But at FanDuel right now, 86% of spread bets, 95% of spread money on Ohio State.
Yeah, and that's – Texas has the formula to knock them off. So I wouldn't – 6 points is a lot of points. That's a lot.
The line I'm looking at is 5.5, but same thing for the most part.
FanDuel hasn't moved, though. That's the one interesting thing. Like DraftKings, I think, got up to 6.5. I saw that. They're down to 6. FanDuel's been at 5.5, and like all the money's pouring in there. I mean, it might open at 4.5, but it could. I don't think bookmakers will put it up to 7.5 by kickoff. I don't think they'll do that. That's too risky for them.
Yeah, I don't think you can.
But anyway, should we move into Notre Dame, Georgia?
Yeah, let's talk about it. First and foremost, by the way, prayers, thoughts to anybody affected or anybody who knows that anybody was affected down in New Orleans. That's a horrible situation. It's sad that we continue to find ourselves in that. And also, if you were online complaining about them delaying the game 24 hours, you are a loser. I'm sorry.
Parker Jones, tough game for Parker. Yeah, I have another problem. Yeah, obviously everything Grant said, it's sad. We got to move forward. We got to figure out how to clean this up so it doesn't happen again, especially like Super Bowl coming there and all that. It was very, very sad. And they made the right decision to move the game, obviously. Like you can't play the game that night. Because they still had like the whole city was shut down at kickoff of what the original kickoff would have been. So I don't even know how people thought you could play that night. But Parker Jones, ESPN did this kid dirty.
They did.
They like we're in the fourth quarter and they're showing Parker Jones and like this kid has to feel terrible right now. He has to feel just horrendous. And again, they probably lost a touchdown there. This is a game of momentum. There is a chance they would have scored if they were on the 10-yard line versus the 30-yard line. But Parker Jones is probably not the reason that they lost last night. And I'm seeing Georgia fans, Grant, complain about Parker Jones. I just don't know how you can blame the loss on him.
What I'm complaining about is he's supposed to be a quarterback. Why is he wearing number 38?
No, corner. He was a corner.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense. I thought it was a quarterback.
I saw a tweet from Gavin McHugh, that dude.
Yes.
Yeah, his tweet was like the kid who it's all fun and games till the kid who keeps the team GPA up gets a 15-yard penalty in the The Sugar
That's
Bowl.
good. Yeah, to
Um,
anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, Georgia, it was sideline interference. Was that the call?
it was on the big pass play, down the right side, down the Georgia
Yeah.
sideline, and he was like in the ref box, and the ref like they collided with each other. He got a 15-yard penalty. That's inexcusable. Like it can't happen if you're Parker Jones. I'm sorry. Like Parker Jones deserves a little shit for that, but like it wasn't the reason. He's lucky too. They didn't lose by 4 points, and that
Yeah.
touchdown would have made the difference.
Yeah, it would have. So let's talk about big takeaways from this game. My biggest takeaway is Notre Dame. I want to balance this. Notre Dame deserves credit. I'm not trying to say Notre Dame played poorly. What I am saying is Georgia beat themselves. Kirby Smart, for as great of a coach as Kirby Smart is, he's a little more on the conservative side, especially on offense. Defense is aggressive. On offense, he's conservative. He doesn't go for it on fourth down a lot. Certain situations where you would expect him to take his chances, he doesn't. So I was shocked that with 30 or 40 seconds left, ball at their own 20, 25-yard line, he decided to have Gunnar Stockton throw the ball. I've seen Kirby run the ball a million times in that situation with Carson Beck on the field. So the fact this was, I think it was a 3-point game, maybe a 7-point game, whatever it was, the fact it was that situation late in the first half, backup quarterback who is making his first start ever, I was shocked to see him throw the ball. Of course, there's the strip sack. Notre Dame goes and scores off of that. And then Notre Dame returns the opening kickoff the second half for a touchdown. That's the game right there. 14 points where Georgia beat themselves. I'm not saying Notre Dame played bad. Their defense actually played pretty well for the most part, and they were able to control the clock, extend the late drives, kill the clock off so Georgia couldn't come back. But you can't look at this and say Notre Dame dominated Georgia. That's not what happened here.
And that's the narrative, though, that the media is trying to pump up. I'll say this right now. Notre Dame cannot beat Penn State throwing for 90 yards next week. It can't happen. They can't beat – and Riley Leonard being your leading rusher, that can't happen either, like to beat Penn State. You need to – Notre Dame had no run game with their running backs, unless they were getting to the edge. When they got to the edge late in the game, that did make a difference. But they had no offense. Gunnar Stockton, 234, 20 and 32, 1 touchdown. Georgia had no run game. They couldn't help him out. That was a big issue for them. But this game was decided by a strip sack and a kick return for a touchdown. And you can say, well, they still made those plays. Yes, they did. But how often are you going to get a strip sack right before the end of the half, follow it up with a kick return for a touchdown? It does not happen a lot. So that is where it's like, well, Georgia beat themselves, because that sequence just isn't really a thing that has happened much in football at all.
The biggest thing also, I think, that you saw missing Carson Beck, Stockton played well. And I was surprised, but I also wasn't when I saw how many yards Stockton had thrown for, because I could tell Georgia was moving the ball, but like seeing the numbers, it kind of validates. It's like, oh, wow, 235 yards, touchdown, like completed 75% of his passes. The kid actually played pretty well. He and the team did not make the plays when they needed to. That's where I think having Carson Beck there makes the biggest difference. Like the 4th and 2 from the 10-yard line or whatever it was, when they were down 13 and Stockton overthrows, I think it was Oscar Delp on the right side, like going towards the flat by the goal line, running for it and getting stuffed. The strip sack, which I don't want to put that all on. I think strip sacks are mostly an offensive line thing. Like I don't blame the quarterback too much for that, but still, those key situations where you need a play, they did not get it.
Yeah, and when you look at like the biggest difference with Carson Beck, I think, was third down. Like Georgia 2 for 12 on third down. Carson Beck's going to convert more of those. You get the ball at the 50-yard line after the Notre Dame turnover on downs, and you can make it a 6-point game if you go down and score. I have more faith in Carson Beck putting a touchdown drive together there with the momentum. Like that's a game that would have changed the game. You go down 6 with time left in the third quarter. With how your defense is playing, you're probably going to win the game. So it did hurt them missing Carson Beck, but from a stat perspective, like Gunnar Stockton was good. And the reason they beat Texas in the SEC championship, they were able to run the ball. Like ETN had success running the ball. It didn't all fall on Gunnar Stockton. Like Gunnar Stockton played better throwing the ball in this game than he did in the SEC championship. But he also had a run game there, which controlled clock and kept Texas off the field and all that good stuff. And in Notre Dame, I can't walk away from this game. I walked away from this game last night, and this was the minority opinion on Twitter at least, but there were a lot of people saying this. I think Penn State could smoke Notre Dame. I really do. I don't think Notre Dame's that good.
I don't know if I would smoke them or they would smoke them, but I'm definitely leaning towards Penn State right now. That's my walking away from the game, how I'm feeling. That's my reaction.
I wouldn't put Penn State as an underdog. I wouldn't. I would put Penn State as the favorite in that game.
I would.
Notre Dame is better coached. Notre Dame is a better coached team. That's the biggest difference. But man, I mean, quarterback wise, I'll take Drew Aller over Riley Leonard. I'll take Katron Allen. And what's his name? As much as I'll take Notre Dame's running backs, receiving wise, I'll take Penn State's receivers, and defensively, I think they match up pretty evenly. So I think it's a game that Penn State should win.
Can I ask you a question as a former offensive lineman? So if your quarterback is the one setting protections, it's usually the quarterback, but obviously sometimes the center does it. Rare instances, maybe someone else. What?
They'll call it in. So the coach, the coordinator will call the protection in, and then the quarterback will change the protection if they have to. It won't be the center.
Okay, well, so my question was, could you, like, I know Jason Kelsey used to help with protection. So if I'm just asking, in this situation where you have this backup quarterback starting his first start, it's a huge game. Would it have been possible to get your center like, hey, we need you to help out with protections here, or is that just too much to change?
I'm sure they were working together on it. I think Georgia's offensive line protected really well last night. I think they had breakdowns at left tackle. Like, I think from an interior perspective, they were okay. The biggest breakdowns were just the left tackle was getting beat. Like that. So you
don't put that on Stockton missing protections.
I put it on Stockton a little bit, not being able to, like, the time clock in his head, especially early in the game, like he wasn't getting the ball out probably quick enough. But I think, like, just watching the game, it was the left tackle was getting beat consistently. That was where the pressure was coming from more than the interior, I would say.
I think the clock is kind of a good point, and something I'm surprised. I don't know if you heard them say this. They said that Gunnar Stockton supposedly watches more film than anyone on the team. I don't know if that's true, but you kind of expect a quarterback to watch the most film. And at that point, it's just like, who's watching more film, Stockton or Beck? Like, anyway, the point I'm making is I was surprised Notre Dame blitzed more than anybody in FBS. They blitzed on, I think, 48% of plays. And Georgia did not seem prepared for pressure. So it just caught me by surprise a little. You thought they would have had a better plan.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame's really good up front. Like, they are good. They're a good football team. But did they win the game last night? Like, I think Georgia played themselves out of the game. But I think from a talent perspective, Notre Dame's really good up front on both sides of the ball. Offensively, they couldn't get anything going last night. I still think they're going to have trouble running the ball against Penn State. But from a defensive perspective, up front, they're very good. And that was a huge difference last night. But like, from protection-wise, the left tackle was a big issue for Georgia. I thought that was the biggest protection issue. I don't think it was scheme as much as just one-on-one guys weren't winning their matchups.
If Notre Dame did win this game, it's when they had the Chinese fire drill. They ran the special teams off. They brought the offense back on, and they probably aren't going to snap the ball, but Georgia jumps off sides. That's where they won, and that's coaching. That is entirely coaching.
Did you see the Notre Dame receiver move first? You said that clip?
I did not.
Yeah, again, it's tough because he's off the ball, so the ref, like, looking down the line of scrimmage, you're not going to see as much, but the Notre Dame receiver clearly jumped first. Again, even if you get a stop there, Georgia's not scoring 2 touchdowns. I don't believe they're going to get 2 touchdowns in whatever. So, yeah, that made it different. It officially took away the game from Georgia. Georgia's not going to get a stop, score, get a 3 and out. I mean, they probably get 3 and out, but I don't see them scoring 2 touchdowns. They couldn't do it all night. So that was great coaching, though, by Marcus Freeman.
I wonder if this game changes Kirby Smart's philosophy on the recruiting trail. Because listen, Georgia's defense this year, great. Not what it's been as far as talent, like NFL projections. We don't look at these guys as guaranteed stars in the NFL like we did your Jalen Carters or your Roquan Smiths, your Nolan Smiths, whoever, right? That's not what this Georgia defense is. Yet the Georgia defense was brilliant. They were awesome. In this game, backup quarterback with no starts in college was the best player on offense. The offensive line wasn't great. Your receivers led the FBS in drops. You couldn't run the ball at all. Is this finally where Kirby Smart starts taking like a more, we need the skill position guys. We can't just be 3-star development you. We can't take unheralded guys back, rely on our defense. Maybe we need to go get a 5-star receiver.
Yeah, I think they need like a Jeremiah Smith. Like that puts them to a whole nother level. And Trevor Etienne's good. I know he had the off-the-field issues this year, but he didn't have much of an offensive line, so it's hard to really get behind him. And they didn't emphasize the run. They were too pass-heavy all year with Carson Beck. So like I think they need to emphasize the run. They need to have great offensive linemen, but they also need some skill players that can go down and make play. Like the drop last night, whoever the hell that was, down the left sideline. They scored on that drive, but you can't be playing at Georgia and drop that ball. And he dropped another one, I think, in the game too. But you can't drop that ball at Georgia. That
was so bad. I mean, Stockton did everything he could. That was going to be like their first big play of the game, and he dropped it.
And luckily, they still scored. But when that's the crazy thing. Like Carson Beck threw for 3,400 yards this year, and you don't have a 1,000-yard receiver on your team. So I don't know how that's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, it shows where they are. Again, these receivers led the FBS in drops. That's inexcusable for a team that wants to win a national championship. It can't happen.
Dylan Bell's hitting the portal. He ain't Georgia worthy.
No, I think Kirby's gonna have a real clear out on offense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so do we want to talk NFL for a minute? Vikings.
Yeah, just do it. Let's get a couple minutes on it. It's important.
All right, so Vikings Lions. We have the Bengals game on Saturday. I think even if the Bengals win that game, Grant, the Chiefs are not going to beat the Broncos as a 10.5-point dog, not playing starters. So I don't even know if it's worth talking about Bengals, but you can give a quick input there if you want.
I'm with you. That was the only thing I was going to talk about because for the Bengals to make it, they need the Chiefs or they need the Broncos to lose and they need the Dolphins to lose. It'll be cool to see if Joe Burrow can have this ridiculous year and close it out against a great defense of the Steelers, but I still don't think they'll make the playoffs.
I mean, I think the Dolphins could lose to the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers' last game, that's a game that's very likely to happen. And if I'm the Bengals or if I'm the Chiefs, I don't want to beat the Broncos. I don't want Joe Burrow in the playoffs.
Agreed. That's the biggest thing.
I don't think they're going to throw the game by any means, but they're going to. It might be 3rd and 15. They're running the ball. They ain't trying to pick it up.
Yeah, 100%. It would be silly. Don't make your own path more difficult.
Now, Vikings Lions. I think the Vikings beat the Lions, Grant. I think they walk in Detroit and I think they knock them off.
I do too. There's been a lot of people turning on the Lions, and I can't speak for everyone else. I only speak for myself. If the Lions were fully healthy, I might still have them predicted to win the Super Bowl. You can't go on like this. Every game they play, it's like the first team to 40 points wins. That in a one and done format, we're not quite there yet, but in a one and done format, that's not going to work. And I'll tell you what, we assume this is going to be a close game. It's going to be a physical game, a tough game at the very least, right? If Detroit plays this game, they lose it. They're this injured. They just played that hard to beat the Vikings, but they lost. And then they go on the road in the first round of the playoffs. I can easily see them losing that first game.
You know who they're playing too, right?
It would be either the Bucks or the Rams.
The Bucks.
Well, the Bucks can still move up. The Bucks are the 4. They can still move up to the 3, I believe.
6.
Huh?
Did the Bucks did the Bucks play the Rams head to head?
I don't know if they did. I know that if the Rams lose and the Bucks win, then the Bucks go up to 3.
Okay, so Rams need to win. No, Rams already clinched the division. So
yeah, the Rams are also playing backups this week.
They're probably not going to, but you also Buccaneers are going to win. So do the Buccaneers definitely jump them because of the NFC record?
Yeah, they definitely do. Basically, this is to determine. So we've got Lions, Commanders, Bucks, Rams. It's going to be who matches up with who, and it depends if the Rams win and if the Bucks win.
Okay, so Bucks are going to win. That's Bucks are not going to lose as a 13-point dog to the Saints. So then you go on the road and you face the Rams here. I just think this game doesn't set up well for the Lions in the sense of Minnesota has a good defense, and this is like the Lions have kind of put everything out there to try to win this year. Like this is the team. The Vikings have just been under the radar. I didn't even realize the Vikings were a 2-loss team, honestly, till like that. I realized it, but you know what I'm saying? Like I never thought we'd be in this situation like 3 weeks ago. So like they've just kind of been under the radar, like the little brother of the division, and they have a very good chance of winning the division.
Now, yeah, everybody's talking about the Lions like they're this incredible team, and they are, but they have exactly the same record as the Vikings. And when they played earlier this year, Sam Darnold did not play amazingly. He wasn't bad, but he wasn't amazing. He's been really good as of late. And because the Vikings lost, we always talk about this, you learn more in a loss than you do in a win. So going back, looking at film, all that stuff, you would imagine the Vikings have probably taken more from that. They're far more healthy now. I think it's a Vikings win.
I think it's a Vikings win. I think the Eagles, if they can hold it together, I think they're coming out of the NFC. If they can hold it together. I don't know if they can or not.
I don't know either. The NFC, I got to be honest, the NFC's kind of, I can see the Buccaneers, I can see the Rams making the NFC Championship game. I can see the Commanders beating both of those teams. The Packers, we know what they can be. And then the Lions, the Eagles, and the Vikings are all super good. I think this NFC is wide open right now.
Oh, I totally agree. And the fact that the Buccaneers are 13-1 to win the NFC, kind of disrespectful. For
what
Tampa
are the odds actually? I'm gonna go look at those.
Lions 2-1, Eagles 3-1, Vikings 360, Packers 7-1. That's a good bet. Rams 12-1, Bucks 13-1. Commies 15-1, Falcons are done. 150-1.
Yeah, I think Rams and Bucks at 12-1 and 13-1. I think there's a lot of value on both of those.
Yeah, I mean, one of them could get to they're both going to be a home playoff game. One of them could easily get to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, and at that point, I'll be honest, even though I probably like the Rams more than the Bucks. I think their defense has gotten a lot better recently. I still worry about Tampa's secondary.
Yeah, I worry about Tampa too, for sure. But if one of those can get there, man, I mean, you got a good hedge opportunity too, because there will be a moment in any of those games where you could live bet the other team at even money because it's a playoff game.
Yeah, definitely. And let's say it's the Rams, let's say it's the Bucks. If the Bucks are playing the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, the Eagles are better, sure, but how much do you actually favor them to beat the Bucks by?
3.5.
Yeah, that's about where I would put it. 2.5,
Yeah.
3.5.
3.5. I mean, it's not 6.5.
No, it's a close game.
Yeah, so it should be interesting down the stretch, Graham. But I'm taking the Vikings like you, and I think the Lions. If you do go to the 5th seed, you probably still beat the Rams in week 1 if they're the 4. Probably. I mean, just being realistic. And then after that, you probably can play the Eagles, right?
Yeah, probably.
The Eagles or Bucks. So Bucks would play the Commanders at 3-6. That'd be a good game.
Again, I don't think the Commanders. I know the Commanders don't have the defense to win the NFC Championship, but Jaden is playing better than every quarterback in the NFC right now. So you've got a chance.
Baker should have made the Pro Bowl over Jaden Grant. It's freaking preposterous.
I mean, that was crazy. Think about it. The NFC quarterbacks are a rookie, Sam Darnold, and Jared Goff is the most established guy there. That's kind of wild.
I don't know what they take into account for those two, because Baker's third in yards, second in touchdowns. He is 16th in QBR, but the dude has just lit up the stat sheet this year.
Yeah, he's thrown the ball a ton, which helps the stats obviously, but he's also been very good. I don't think I would put Baker in above Jaden. I don't know. It's tough.
I mean, Jaden doesn't have the same stats, but he's been more efficient.
He's been more effective. He's been more important probably too, because at least like Bucky Irvin's been coming on lately, and he had Godwin. He's got Mike Evans.
He does, but he didn't have Godwin and Evans for a chunk of the season too. Like Godwin got hurt against the Ravens, and then he didn't have Evans for a while, and now he's leading them to the postseason. Like I don't
Baker's been great. Don't get me wrong.
Great, yeah. They need to expand the quarterbacks. I think they need 4.
I don't know. And it becomes a participation award.
Well, the Pro Bowl already isn't a participation award. It's flag football.
Yeah, I know. Mac Jones got in.
And then half these guys opt out. And then, like, does that still count for your Pro Bowl when the guys opt out and they fill the replacements?
I think it goes on your resume, yeah.
I think you still make the Pro Bowl. So there's a good chance he's going to make the Pro Bowl.
And also, we're announcing Pro Bowl rosters before the season is over now. Like, it's just the whole thing's a joke at this point. It should just honestly be like a list they put out, and that's it. We don't even need an event anymore.
Yeah. All right, Grant. Time to wrap it up.
Guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Tanner and I appreciate you all giving us your time and joining us. Before you click off this video, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Jump in the comments. Let us know what was your biggest takeaway from the college football playoff. We will be down there responding as always. We will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.